Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, OP dated their girlfriend for 18 months, starting from a nightclub encounter. Initially passionate, their relationship became toxic as she frequently pulled away. Despite multiple attempts to fix things, the issues persisted. He discovered she was cheating when he found evidence on her Instagram. After confronting her, he asked her to leave and publicly exposed her infidelity on social media. Now let's get into the story. My girlfriend and I have been dating for about 18 months. It's not the longest relationship I know, but it was very toxic. She and I met at a nightclub in New York on New Year's Eve. She was by far the hottest girl in the room, and from what I could tell, she was there without a date. I saw a bunch of men going up to her and shooting their shots, and I figured I didn't have anything to lose by trying myself. I went up to her and made a couple of jokes that she was very receptive to. I ended up buying her a drink, and we shared our first kiss at midnight. The first few months of our relationship were incredibly passionate. There was something about her that I found out, almost intoxicating. She was like a bit of a drug to me, and I couldn't spend enough time with her. After our honeymoon phase was over, she started getting very cold with me. It seemed like she was trying to pull away from the relationship, but I really didn't want that to happen. I invited her over for dinner one night, and I opened up the floor to talk to her. I told her about how much I liked her and how I didn't know what was wrong with the relationship, but I wanted to work on it. She was honest and vulnerable with me, which I really appreciated. She told me that at certain points in relationships, she just got really nervous, and she would pull away from them before she put her heart up there to get hurt. I assured her that she was my dream girl, and I had absolutely no intention of fumbling her. After that conversation, things started looking up for us again. Over the next 6 months, we repeated that pattern 3 or 4 times. It was pretty exhausting, but we worked through it every time. At the time, I looked at that rocky relationship and thought that we only made it through those tough times because we had such a strong bond. I know now that it was entirely unhealthy, and we should have just ended things after the first time. In the month leading up to our breakup, we had another low point. I was very exhausted with how everything was going. I have never been with somebody who was so hot and cold all the time, and I didn't know how much longer I was going to be able to handle it. It felt like every time I started to distance myself from the relationship, she would step in and do everything in her power to keep me there. For context, my girlfriend was an aspiring influencer. If for some reason you don't know what that means, it means that she was pretty much unemployed. But she had a couple of brand deals that helped her pay her rent. Whenever we would go out, I would foot the bill for dinner or concert tickets and things like that. I was also raised in a way that the man always pays for the dates, but that's a whole other thing. We were having a really low point in a relationship, and she was making it clear to me that she wanted us to move in together. I was very confused about why she wanted to move in together if we were on the verge of breaking up. She told me that she thought if we lived together, it might make it easier for us to work through some of the issues we had. That made absolutely no sense to me. So I told her that I didn't want to move in with her until I knew we had a better foundation than we did. She was upset by that, and she stormed away from me, and I hadn't spoken to her for about 4 days. It was reaching a point where I thought that she was just ghosting me. It sucked to think about it, but there was a part of me that was happy that it was over. She finally reached back up to me and told me that she wanted to get together to talk. I was fully preparing myself for a breakup when she came over to my apartment. Instead, she was honest with me, and she told me that she wasn't able to pay for her rent because of an increase the landlord enacted. She didn't want to have to move back home with her parents, so she wanted to live with me. I was apprehensive about it at first. I didn't want her to be living with me just because she thought I was going to pay her bills. I explained that to her, and we came to an agreement that she would just crash with me until she was on her feet. There was no legal binding, and there was the option to kick her out should something happen with us, and we break up. I was really glad that I decided not to officially move in with her. Just a few weeks after that happened, things really hit the fan with us. She had been working on her Instagram and TikTok following very hard. The more followers she had, the more brand deals she got, and the more money she earned. She was following a lot of people, messaging a lot of other people with large follower bases, and creating content almost nonstop. It was working for her too. She was getting a decent amount of followers, and she was really getting up there. She had a couple of other brand offerings coming through, and she was excited about all the prospects. One day, I took a half day from work because of a conference I needed to attend very early the following day. I was home, just chilling on the couch playing some games when she walked in the door. She was wearing a men's t-shirt that I knew for a fact wasn't mine, and I had never seen her wearing it before. I asked her about it, and she told me that it was just an old shirt that she had. Something about it didn't check out to me. Of course, I didn't know her entire wardrobe, but she wasn't the type of person to walk around in an old, oversized t-shirt with a couple of holes in the bottom of it. If she told me she borrowed a friend's t-shirt, I wouldn't have thought twice about it, but I knew she was lying about it being her t-shirt. I didn't use social media a lot. I thought it was exhausting, and most of the people who were using it all the time were very rapid, my girlfriend included, but after I saw that, I decided that I should take a look at it to see what was going on. Eventually, through her tagged photos on Instagram, I saw that she was with another man who was wearing the t-shirt she walked in with. Why would she walk into my apartment wearing the same t-shirt that another man was wearing the day before? I had my suspicions about her sleeping with someone else. I looked at the other guy's social media and saw that he had a lot of followers, not in the millions or anything, but a decent amount. He was on a dating show, and that's how he got semi-famous. I put two and two together, and I was already under the assumption that they were having an affair. I just needed some kind of confirmation that that was the case. I figured if the evidence was anywhere, it was in her Instagram messages. She got in the shower, and right away I looked through her laptop to see what I could find. Of course, she had her Instagram already logged in, so I didn't have to do anything. I found her messages with a guy from the dating show, and I thought they were very flirty. She messaged him first and said something about how she wanted to hang out with him if they were ever in New York. He responded to the message, and they were very sexual with each other. Leading up to it, whenever she would post a picture of herself, he would reply to it and send her eye emojis and things like that. Their most recent messages had them meeting up for drinks at his hotel bar. He'd flown into the city for a photo shoot, and he wanted to meet her. The fact that it was at his hotel bar told me all that I needed to know. There wasn't a doubt in my mind that they had been intimate with each other. I took a couple of screen grabs of the messages, and I sent them to myself as quickly as I could while she was still in the shower. I made sure there were dates included and pictures to prove things. From the look of it, it seemed like the guy had somewhat of a relationship with someone I figured was a fellow cast member. Now I was aware that it could have been a publicity thing. I don't watch reality television, but if they wound up together, I'm sure a lot of fans of the show would probably love seeing them together after the fact. My girlfriend got out of the shower to find me in my bedroom packing up her belongings. She asked me about what I was doing, and I told her that I knew about everything, and I wanted her to get out of my apartment. I wasn't going to have a cheater crashing with me. She tried to yell at me for invading her privacy, but I didn't care. She was a liar, and that was all that mattered. When she realized I wasn't going to budge, she packed up the rest of her belongings and got out. Her only other friend in the area was engaged, and from what I understand, she didn't want her staying at her apartment because she lived there with her fiancé. I couldn't blame her for being nervous about that. I kicked my girlfriend out, but I was thinking about everything for a couple of days, figuring out things that I could do. I decided that I wanted to call her out on social media. She was using me, and she lied to me, and then cheated on me with someone who could help her get a leg up in the industry. I created a post on Instagram, and I put it on my story. I reached out to the woman from the dating show who seemed to be in a relationship with the other guy, and sent her everything. I commented on their videos and posts, trying to gain traction for it. Eventually, it took off and the rumors started spreading. People were on my girlfriend's Instagram account calling her a homewrecker alongside a myriad of other names a lot worse than that. I felt kind of bad that she was getting verbally attacked, but it wasn't really my problem. When my girlfriend found out that I was the one who posted that video, She was very upset with me. She told me that she didn't think I would ever do something like that to her, and she said she never wanted to talk to me again. As if that was her decision to begin with. The couple from the dating show both broke up, and the woman actually went on a couple of podcasts and talked about everything. I didn't listen to them, but I had some friends share the information with me. People on the internet really hated the guy after everything because apparently he was already kind of a jerk on the show. About a year and a half removed from that situation, and I'm ready to move on from it. I'm a little more wary about people and relationships I'm going into now. Today's second story. In this story, OP was married for 4 years, believing his wife was his best friend and the love of his life. Their relationship soured when he discovered she was cheating with a coworker, using work as a cover. He exposed the affair by confronting them with the coworker's wife. The marriage ended in divorce, leaving him heartbroken. Now let's get into the story. My wife and I were married for about 4 years before our divorce. I thought we were madly in love with each other. She was my favorite person, my best friend, and the love of my life. I don't understand how things turned out the way that they did, but I'm trying to work through them as best as I can. When we met, we fell hard and fast for each other. A mutual friend introduced us because they thought we would have a lot to talk about. We ended up leaving the party we were at that night together, and we barely spent a day apart since. I'd never been able to picture a future with a woman until I met her. She completely changed how I felt about love and relationships. We got married after 2 years of being together, and it was all picture perfect. My wife was always somewhat of a flirt. It bothered me when we were together, but I convinced myself that it was just her being friendly with people. I figured that as long as she was coming home to me at the end of the day, it wasn't that big of a deal. I've dated a lot of women, but one of my fatal flaws as a bachelor was how clueless I was when women were coming on to me. I had countless friends always telling me that a woman was hitting on me when I didn't even notice. So, when I invited a friend from work over for dinner one night, and my wife saw how she was acting toward me, we had a conversation. My wife told me that the friend from work was obviously into me, and she was nervous about our relationship. I assured her that she was the only woman for me, and that I hadn't even noticed the woman was flirting with me. She listened to what I said, but she needed to see proof of it for herself. We had a long conversation that night about boundaries and having the ability to look through the other's phone when needed. I gave her my information, and she looked through my text message exchanges with my coworker, and she found nothing suspicious. She gave me her cell phone information, and I briefly looked at her phone, but I didn't really have anything to look for. There was a point when my wife started spending a little of time at work after hours. I didn't question it because I knew she was trying to put in the work to get a big promotion. It was extremely competitive as well, so she needed to have a leg up on some of the people she was competing for it with. She would come home exhausted and hop right in the shower before going to bed. She never wanted to tell me about work when she got home, and I assumed that was because she was stressed and exhausted from everything. She kept doing that for about 3 weeks until she came home furious one evening because she didn't get the promotion. She just kept yelling about how hard she worked and how she was doing things nobody else was doing because she wanted it so badly. She made it seem like it was a boys' club at the office, and the only reason she didn't get the promotion was because she was a woman. I was angry on her behalf. I knew that she was smart and very dedicated to her job, and if they weren't promoting her because she was a woman, that was not only unfair but illegal. When I saw how upset she was, I was encouraging her to quit her job and go somewhere where she would be appreciated. Several weeks went by and things started to go back to normal with her. She was annoyed that she didn't get the promotion, but she sucked it up and went back to work as she always had. I was working from home one afternoon when I got an Amber Alert notification on my phone. The alert freaked me out, so I swiped it away very quickly to make the sound disappear. However, I could hear the alert going off from somewhere under my bed. I was confused about that. Right away, I got up and started digging through some of the bags and storage containers we kept under there to find out where it was coming from. I found an old tote bag hidden inside a plastic storage container with a cheap cell phone inside. It was turned on and had about half the battery life remaining. I got rid of the Amber Alert notification and just stared at the phone, confused about why it was there. My wife and I were on the same phone plan, and I knew that she had an iPhone, not some chintzy little plastic phone. For a second, I assumed it was probably just an old phone of hers, but that didn't explain why it was on and had battery life to it. I unlocked it and took a quick look through it to see what was going on with this phone. I could see that it was on silent mode, so had it not been for the Amber Alert, I wouldn't have even known it was there. Aside from a few missed calls from toll call numbers, there was only one number that was frequently called and texted. I recognized the name right away. It was one of my wife's co-workers. Let's call him Chris. We would invite Chris and his wife over for dinner often. We went on double dates with them. They had their first baby on the way and everything. I took a deep breath and I looked through the messages. It was clear they were having an affair. They had been exchanging pictures with each other and talking about what they were going to do with each other the next time they could be alone. There were messages where Chris told my wife that he was thinking about her when he was sleeping with his wife. My wife would reply by sending him a picture of her topless or something like that. They made plans together to both stay late after work and beat each other. The more I scrolled through the messages, I realized that there was never a promotion that my wife was trying to get. She had come up with a very elaborate line to cover for what she was really doing after work. I completely believed it too. I was heartbroken with what I found. My wife was the woman of my dreams, and I was over the moon to be with her, and I found out that she was cheating on me. I almost wanted to put the phone back and pretend like I hadn't found anything out, but I knew I couldn't do that. How was I supposed to look at her the same way after I knew what she had done? I was going to have to divorce her, and the idea of that was heart-wrenching. I got back to my computer and immediately started looking up some information about divorce. While I was doing that, my wife texted me and told me that she would be staying late at work again because she needed to prepare for a meeting the next day. After what I'd seen, I knew it was a lie. I hadn't been angry up until that point. I was sad and defeated, but when she lied to me again and I knew what was really happening, I was furious. I thought over what I wanted to do for a few minutes before an idea struck me. I called Chris's wife and I asked her if they wanted to come over for dinner that night. She told me it sounded great, but Chris was staying late at work. I told her we would schedule it for another time and hung up. About 10 minutes later, I texted her and told her that my wife was staying late too. I suggested that we be supportive, caring partners, and grab some takeout and bring it to them. She was all for that idea. We met up around 5:30, went to grab some Chinese food, and drove together to the office where our partners worked. I knew that we would likely be walking into both of them having intimate, and I was nervous to see it. I started to feel bad that I had involved Chris' wife in all of this. She certainly didn't need to see what was about to happen. Unfortunately, it was too late to go back. We got to their office about 45 minutes after everybody would have normally left for the day. There were a couple of cars in the parking lot. One of them I recognized right away was my wife's. Both of us went inside and took the elevator up to the office where our partners worked. When the elevator door opened, we could hear the sounds of people having intimate. They weren't really making much of an effort to hide what they were doing. I was surprised that his wife immediately dropped the food on the ground and stormed through the office to see what was happening. I let her lead the way, and she brought us to a small conference room where both of our partners were completely naked and on the floor having intimate. She slammed the door open and walked over to her husband, pulling him off my wife's by his hair. Chris saw her and started immediately trying to apologize and explain what was happening. My wife immediately stood up and tried to get dressed. I didn't say anything. Instead, I just turned around and walked away. I knew exactly what I was going to be walking into, but part of me wished that I had hallucinated everything or something like that. My wife got dressed and followed me out of the office, begging me to stop and listen to her. I stopped and I gave her a moment to try and explain what was happening. She told me that they had been working late at the office one night and it just happened. They were just having intimate and that was all there was. She told me that she still loved me more than anything in the world and didn't want to lose me, but she wasn't happy with monogamy. I didn't want to listen to what she was saying, so I just left. I waited by the car for Chris's wife so we could leave together. She was extremely upset when she got in and was just crying about how he was the one who wanted a baby, and that was how he was going to act after she was pregnant. I felt even worse for her than I did for myself as she was talking. I finally got home after dropping her off, and I packed a bag for myself to go stay at a hotel. I couldn't stand to be around my wife after that. I contacted a divorce attorney, and we got the paperwork ready to be filed. As soon as it was ready, I gave it to her. She tried as hard as she could to convince me to stay with her and pursue an ethically non-monogamous lifestyle with her. She told me that would mean I could sleep with other women like that, was an incentive for me to forgive everything she had done. I didn't want that. I didn't want to be with other women. I wanted to be with my wife, who I thought I loved. We ended up getting divorced, and I was awarded our house. I didn't want to live in the house that I shared so many memories with her in, so I ended up selling it. Chris and his wife also divorced. Their divorce was a lot messier than ours, because there was a child in the picture and they had to go through custody. But the wife was awarded full custody of their kid, and she got to keep their house. Plus, he had to pay her spousal support and child support. On top of that, they were both let go from their job after I informed their employer that they were staying late at work to have intimate in the office. I haven't spoken to my wife since the divorce, so I don't know if she's found another job or if she is still looking. All I know is that she's not going to be able to use her previous job as a reference because of how she was terminated.